Hi, Clint Coons here with Anderson Business Advisors, and in this video we are going to discuss how do you name your land trust. Okay, let's get started. So, you're going to set up a land trust for the first time, or maybe you've been doing it for a while, and you're trying to figure out what do you want to name your trust. Now, there are many different ideas on how you come up with a name for a land trust, and I've talked about it before over the years. But typically it's been, name it after the property address some way, somehow. But always remember, do not use the word land trust in the name. For example, if I was going to come up, I was buying a property on 1465 8th Street. Maybe I would call it the 1465 Trust, just so that I know that the property held inside of that trust relates to that trust itself, because I'm using part of the address there. So when you're naming land trusts, it's often a good idea to use a portion of the address in the trust name, and don't use the word land like I just gave you. So it's a 1485 trust that is going to hold the property on 1485 East Street or 8th Street, whatever I'd said. So that would be the name of my trust. Now, what's crucial here is that, as you know, when you create land trusts, here's my land trust, and it's going to hold this piece of property. And initially, you're going to be the beneficiary down here, and you should be using a nominee trustee. Let's say we're using a Wyoming LLC here as our trustee of our trust. Now, when we've set this up, at this point in time, we don't have any asset protection. I got a few comments not too long ago on my YouTube channel from an individual that said, hey, I have 7 properties in different land trusts and all held by an LLC. I have asset protection. No, you don't, because if anything goes wrong with any one of those trusts, the person that sues can go right through the trust and nail you individually. And if you have other trusts there, you're going to lose those trusts as well. So when we set these things up, what we want to do is get the beneficial interest out of our name, right? We want to put it into a limited liability company for asset protection purposes, because we don't want to be liable for our property. That's the whole purpose of setting this up. This gave us anonymity. Now we want to have asset protection. So you're going to create then a limited liability company to own that beneficial interest, and you're going to assign it over. Now here's how this all ties back in, because you thought, hey, Clint, I thought you were talking about naming a trust. I am. Well, when you name that trust, you should also name the limited liability company the exact same name, 1485 LLC. Because I want these two to be the same, because it's going to help you out when you sell the property at a later date. Be sure to check out my video on how to sell property in a land trust, where I discuss this in detail and you'll understand the mechanics behind it. So your trust, if you're setting it up this way, land trust first, followed by LLC, use the property address or use some portion of it. Don't drag it out. If this was 1485 East Green Boulevard, I would not use all of that in my trust name. It's just too many words to put down in there. So truncate it. Now, let's assume it's just the opposite. All right, you have not, you haven't set up the trust yet, but you've already created the limited liability company. Maybe you have an LLC that's been around for a while, and the name of your LLC is MI5 LLC. Okay, so you came up with this nifty little name, MI5 LLC, and now you're going to create a trust to hold property on 1485 Green Street. So what do? Create the 1485 trust? No. In this situation, if I already have the LLC, if this came first, then I would highly recommend, when you create this trust, that you plan to assign to this limited liability company, you call this one the MI5 trust, right? Make a match. I want to see them match. Now, the only time I wouldn't do this is that if I'm building out an anonymity structure and this LLC does not have anonymity, it's associated back to me, because when you created it, you didn't set it up the way we talk about, where I've taught you many times to create a Wyoming LLC first. That's your base entity that offers you anonymity. Then you set up this one as a member managed LLC, pointing back to that Wyoming company so they don't know who you are. And then you set up your trust. So if you did it this way, you're golden. If you didn't, then the problem is if I set up the MI5 trust to be held by the MI5 LLC, and I'm associated with this MI5 LLC, then you're going to lose the anonymity. That's the Achilles heel in this structure. So, point of reference then. If this entity here, if you want anonymity, and this one has anonymity, then name them the same. If it doesn't have anonymity and you still want to use it, then come up with a different name for your trust so they can't tie it back together. So to sum it all up, here's what I'm getting at. When you're setting up your trust, you want to make sure if it's going into a limited liability company that's existing, name the trust after the existing LLC. Understand more about this, watch my video on selling property inside of a land trust. If you have not yet set up the LLC, choose part of the property address in the name. It just makes it much simpler from my perspective to remember which property is in which trust. Now, some people choose not to do it that way. They think that possibly an attorney looking on the public record might assume that you set up a trust and put it into there. I don't think they're that smart because I've dealt with lots of attorneys when it comes to this stuff, and they reach out to me as a nominee trustee thinking it's my property and all that. So if that is your concern, then of course you're going to have to come up with some other naming convention that works for you. But what you should not do is make them all tie together. I give an example a few times where a client in Florida set up the red frog, green frog, brown frog, purple frog, orange frog, black frog, whatever frog trust, and he had all these trusts named after frogs with colors. Anybody's going to kind of figure out that it must be the same person with the frog fetish creating these trusts. Don't be the frog fetish person, come up with different names for them. All right, guys, like I said on some of my other videos, hey, if you like what you see here, give me a like. Any comments, be sure to add those comments down below. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe. All right, everyone else, take care. Best of luck with your real estate investing.